Airlines have been having some technology problems recently, and we wanted to highlight some of those stories and just talk about the overall theme around the infrastructure that's underpinning some of these systems. Some of the problems that have popped up almost actually prevented me from even getting to Switzerland in the first place. The FAA system. I'm not sure the exact name of the system, Evan, if you can fill me in on that one. But it actually grounded all flights in the U.S. for a couple of hours on the day that I was actually flying out. It caused a bunch of delays and cancellations. And I think just for reference there, the only other time that's happened in the past like 20 years was 9/11, when all flights had to be grounded for a period of time. So there's a couple different stories that we wanted to discuss within this kind of overarching theme. So Evan, kick us off by just talking a little bit about the Southwest story and some of these other topics that we wanted to dive into here.
Yeah. So I think the theme here is, America is starting to see, how essential air travel is just for our infrastructure. I think during COVID, there was a lot of rumors that, well, not rumors, but there was just a lot of speculation around, will there be as much travel? Will people want to travel around, or will they want to use Zoom when it comes to business meetings and things of that nature? But we're starting to find out that, airlines are essential. And a lot of the technology that is behind the airlines and a lot of the processes needs to be revamped. And so just within the last month, we've had two major events related to our airlines that have caused an uproar related to our infrastructure. And one of them is Southwest Airlines, and we'll cover that first. And the other one is what you were just alluding to, which is the FAA issues related to their notice to air mission system, is what that technology you were trying to refer to there is called. But let's start with Southwest Airlines. So Southwest Airlines, I don't know if you remember the big winter storm that came through around Christmas time, the days leading up to Christmas. That storm swept across America, and Southwest Airlines computer system just couldn't handle what was going on with the storm and freezing, delays, having to reroute planes, reroute crews. And they ended up canceling or delaying about 2/3 of their flights during that period of time, which affected about 2 million customers right before Christmas. So that's the last time of the year. That's the last thing anybody wants when it comes to Christmas is, delays or cancellations with your flight. So you ended up having a lot of people sleep in the airports. So that's kind of the first story here to cover. We'll get into what actually happened behind the scenes, but what was your perspective on what you're seeing, or what at least you heard?
Yeah, well, first off, pull up the graphic that kind of shows how many cancellations were actually going on in that period. Because you can see on the graphic that Evan's about to share, at first it was a lot of cancellations happening because of the winter storm. And then that winter storm kind of made a perfect storm, so to say, no pun intended, for Southwest Airlines for this technology to kind of spin into chaos. Which the actual software that went down was the software that they used to book flight attendants and pilots on the flights. So what was happening is they were not able to logistically coordinate the staff that they needed to have on these planes to get people where they needed to go. And I think one of my perspectives on this, at least after hearing a little bit about the software that they use to run this system, is just you get the curtain pulled back a little bit on the quality of this software. I don't want to speculate too much, but from a story that I heard, a lot of this software was being facilitated through like a phone system of calling and notifying these crew members when they needed to fly, which just sounds archaic compared to a lot of the current technology here. So I think that's one of my takeaways, at least from the Southwest story here, is that, the quality of technology that was underpinning all of their systems and all of their logistical processes was simply overwhelmed by this kind of, freak weather thing that happened during Christmas. And it just caused this spiral effect that sent everything into a bit of chaos.
Yeah. So the software you're referring to is called SkySolver. It's also known as Crew Optimization, and it's built by GE. So I actually didn't know GE made a lot of software, especially software that is basically the backbone of our flight infrastructure. And so Southwest Airlines is claiming that's not their technology. They definitely probably have to claim this, because if they said that their underlying technology was flawed, that would be a big issue for the business, and shareholders would probably freak out if they found out that they're running their
Hmm.
business on, faulty software. But there are stories out there that, like you said, allude to the fact that this technology they're using is very old. So as you can see here in this headline, they're just chalking it up to they couldn't keep up with the volume, the snowball effect of the cancellations. So we'll see. They claim they spend about $1 billion a year on technology. And there's a lot of lawsuits and probes from the government trying to figure out exactly what happened here. So we'll see. This graphic here shows, like I said, there were a lot of flights affected. 2/3 of all of the Southwest Airline flights were affected, and that's a big deal. So we'll see how they bounce back if they do. So the other part of the story that we wanted to highlight related to the airline industry was what happened with the FAA. So the FAA, as you said, grounded a lot of flights just the other day. First time they've grounded that many flights since 2019. They had an issue with their what's called notice to air missions system, which sends pilots vital information that they need to fly. So before a pilot gets into the air, they get all this information related to things like other flights in the air, other, let's say, airway cancellations. So what runways might be closed that are needing to be updated so that the flight crew knows exactly what they need to do in emergency situations. So this is all really important data that the airline pilots need before they take off. That system went down. And so that caused, again, huge delays and cancellations. There are about 10,000 delays and cancellations just related to this issue of needing to ground all flights. And so it was actually caused, back to the technology, by a corrupted file that corrupted both the primary systems and the back office or the backup systems. So very, not a great reason here to have the entire thing come down just based on one file. A lot of people were speculating that it might have been a cyber attack, but it wasn't. There is no evidence at this time. The government's claiming of a cyber attack. So that's important thing to notice and point out because this is a prime cyber attack situation here. If a government wanted to take down, our transportation via the air, that would be a great way to attack a nation. So yeah, that was what that Delta Airlines CEO was saying. So he's probably the most famous CEO in the airline space. So I'll pull up that article and share that. But what he was saying was this is essentially not necessarily the FAA's fault. This is basically a funding issue. And so what's going on here that he claims is the FAA is not funded enough. So he's basically claiming, you can see here, lack of funding. So he is the CEO of Delta, which is by far the most successful airline. And he points out that in this video here, again, we'll link to these articles, but there's just not enough funding to cover airlines. And so one of the points we want to make related to airlines is they don't make a lot of money. Their margins are very, very slim. They oftentimes have years where they lose a massive amount of money. And so they need to be subsidized. And it's not just the airlines, it's the whole organization, all the organizations around them, like the FAA, that really regulate it and control and keep people safe. And so what he's saying here is that it's been underfunded and we need to put more funding into it to invest in technology so it doesn't happen again. So, overall theme here with both Southwest and the FAA is, technology that's underpinning the airline industry needs to be updated and needs more funding.
Yeah, I think my last point to make with that is, at least whenever I hear the infrastructure needs to be updated, I tend to always think of like the physical infrastructure. And I think an important piece of this to understand is that really a lot of the infrastructure that is being spoken of here is the digital infrastructure. It's not always the actual airplanes and physical systems that exist to make all of this run. A lot of it is the software systems that make the whole system work. So just when thinking about where does this money go, how does the infrastructure actually improve, a lot of it is on the digital side of things.
The software involved in this is 30 years old. So it hasn't been updated or replaced in 30 years, and it's actually not set to be replaced till 2030. So classic government move here to say that software has a date on it, right? So it's like, we're not going to replace the software till 2030. That's not going to happen. They're going to have to replace it before then. So classic sign right there that, the government is just out of touch when it comes to software, especially in this situation. And if they think they can put like time intervals on, when software can be replaced and when it should be paid attention to, they're, mistakenly making a big mistake there. So that is the result of bad investment and poor software planning.